At some point, when talking about truly legendary Hollywood disasters, the choice inevitably lands on Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls. Not sure about legendary, but hot is definitely accurate. Although sadly we won't be showing any of the truly hot footage here because YouTube would instantly clutch its pearls, hyperventilate, and delete the video. That said, the film is packed with scenes that even today feel like something no major studio would dare to release. And that's not because cinema has evolved spiritually. It's because modern Hollywood is terrified of offending the endless army of extremely fragile people, a population that has somehow multiplied faster than Marvel's sequels. As a result, mainstream movies keep getting safer, blander, and increasingly indistinguishable from one another. So all we can do now is sit quietly, chew on our nostalgia, and remember a time when people were slightly harder to traumatize by fictional characters doing fictional things on a screen. In the early 90s, Hollywood was hit by a full-scale epidemic of erotic thrillers. After Basic Instinct became an absolute box office monster and pulled in around $350 million worldwide, every studio suddenly decided it urgently needed its own steamy, adult, scandal-friendly hit. That's how we ended up with films like Final Analysis, Sliver, and Disclosure. But as always, trends burn out fast, and by the time Bruce Willis tried to jump onto the departing train by running around half-naked in Color of Night, it was already too late. The final nail in the coffin of the erotic thriller genre came courtesy of Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls, a film whose failure didn't just bury an entire genre, it also helped kill one of the most interesting Hollywood studios of the era. By the mid-1990s, Carolco Pictures, the studio that had once given us Terminator 2 and Total Recall, was bleeding money after a long string of expensive disappointments. There were still scripts floating around the studio offices and projects in development, but Carolco no longer had the resources to launch everything into production. Today, with the benefit of hindsight, it's painfully obvious that Mario Casar and Andrew Vajna should have backed the epic action film Crusade, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, instead of betting on Cutthroat Island and Showgirls. But at the time, Crusade was threatening to blow past the $100 million mark and potentially become the most expensive movie ever made. Dark, serious, and with an R rating. Meanwhile, Cutthroat Island and Showgirls together fit comfortably under the same budget ceiling, which made them look like the responsible choice. One was supposed to be a fun summer blockbuster, the other a classy adult thriller. In reality, the $70 million Cutthroat Island devoured nearly $100 million, while Showgirls, initially budgeted at $35 million, casually wandered past $45 million as well. Unlike Cutthroat Island, whose production was a daily exercise in chaos involving fights, firings, and general madness, Showgirls was actually shot without any major behind-the-scenes disasters. That said, the hundreds of actors and actresses who auditioned for the film and didn't get cast were probably thanking God afterward. Charlize Theron, for example, desperately wanted the lead role but was rejected for being too doll-like, which apparently was not the vibe Showgirls was going for. Angelina Jolie, Sharon Stone, Denise Richards, and Pamela Anderson all pursued roles as well, and all of them were turned down for various reasons. During development, the film was expected to receive an R rating, but because Carolco was already sliding toward bankruptcy, nobody was really supervising Paul Verhoeven anymore, and he absolutely took advantage of that freedom. By the time the movie was submitted for rating, it became painfully clear that R was completely off the table. Cutting the film down to size would have meant gutting everything that made the MPAA choke on its coffee, and at that point, the studio had nothing left to lose. So Showgirls went to theaters with an NC-17 rating, becoming the most expensive NC-17 film ever made, and also receiving the widest theatrical release in the history of that rating. The world premiere took place in September 1995, and a large portion of the celebrities in attendance didn't even make it to the end credits. Steven Spielberg reportedly walked out halfway through the film, later asking for a copy so he could finish it at home, explaining that he simply wasn't prepared for what he saw on the big screen. Rumor has it that Kyle MacLachlan, who played one of the lead roles, fled the theater even faster than Spielberg, though MacLachlan himself insists this is slander and that he was merely sitting very quietly in the darkest corner of the theater. meditating and trying to understand how a movie like this could possibly exist. For Elizabeth Berkley, the fallout was catastrophic. After the premiere, her agent immediately cut all ties with her, and the only work she could find afterward consisted of third and fourth tier roles in low-budget films, most of which went straight to video. With a budget of around $45 million, Showgirls earned only about $20 million at the box office. The film won 7 Razzies, and Paul Verhoeven personally showed up to accept the awards for Worst Director and Worst Picture. 5 years later, at a special anniversary ceremony, Showgirls was also crowned Worst Film of the Decade. On its own, Showgirls probably wouldn't have been fatal to Carolco, but right next to it, Cutthroat Island sank with even greater enthusiasm. That double punch was something the studio couldn't survive, and Carolco shut down in 1995. The funniest part of this entire story is what happened next. Over the following 5 years, Showgirls became a massive hit on home video. MGM, which inherited the rights, made over $100 million in pure profit from VHS, DVD, and rentals alone, turning Showgirls into one of the 20 most profitable films in the studio's entire history. Paul Verhoeven and screenwriter Joe Esteras even planned a sequel, which would have followed Elizabeth Berkley's character as she attempted to conquer Hollywood. And if exposing the underbelly of Las Vegas already made so many people choke with outrage, it's genuinely terrifying to imagine what a no-mercy Verhoeven take on Hollywood itself might have done to the public psyche. That was Frameback. See you on the next Rewind.